Totally. All right, we're live. We're live on Twitch. Hey, what's up?
Do we know if the mic's working this time?
I don't know if our super fans out there. Oh,
Sparkles.
Yeah, sparkles.
Sprinkles.
Sprinkles, sparkles, all of them. We have a lot of different SZ ending fans. Hold on, we got to queue up our little thingy here. So one of us had a new experience with a musical artist who has passed, and I liked it. So we're gonna intro our show with a little MF Doom.
So nasty that it's probably somewhat of a travesty having me. Then he told the people, you can call me your majesty. Keep your battery charged, he know it won't stick, yo. And it's not his fault you kick slow. Shoulda let your trick hold, chick hold your sick glow. Plus nobody couldn't do nothing once he let the brick go. And you know I know that's a bunch of snow. Be the soul butter, peep the slow butter as he under the carver.
Purdue is in trouble, baby.
Are they? Is this the right mic?
Yeah, I think so. Do it again.
Purdue.
Yeah. You got the Purdue test.
You never know.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know.
I'll turn both on just in case.
I don't know if folks notice here, but our end zone camera has changed.
Oh, it always changes.
Yeah.
Because
there used to be more knobs and buttons in here.
Yeah. If you take a peek behind, hopefully this doesn't jeopardize security systems.
This is everything for us.
So I know why that's happening and why we got the electric.
Is it inside information or can you tell people?
Breaking news from the ESPN Radio 1280 studios, the newsroom. Bill Bordeaux typing away at the news desk, sending it out to the Associated Press, Agency France Press, all of the reputable news organizations. Reuters. Breaking news. ESPN Radio 1280 and 101.7 FM, your local source for sports here in the Central Coast since, I think, at least 2008. We're moving somewhere. We're moving somewhere else in SLO.
Are we really?
Yeah, someone bought the building and says, get out of here.
It just happened to be in my own house.
Yeah.
Wow, so this joint's
moving.
moving.
Welcome to 2023. Everyone's getting kicked out.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought I was going to move. And I'm staying put, and now you're moving in the summertime.
Within the area.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I thought that my family and I were gonna find some other place because it's small and different things. But we're staying put for another year. Whereas my work home is leaving somewhere, and you're leaving, in town, but still.
Yeah. So, well, it's gonna be strange to do this elsewhere.
Whoa.
But maybe it'll be better.
Could be better.
It should be better.
It should be better. I mean, this place is...
With all due respect.
We have some leaky roof tiles. Really, I think there's more and more water spots.
We have a leaky black poster in here.
Yeah. Now that we can unleash our true feelings about this hellhole... No, it's been a good place. It actually is going to be pretty sad for me. It's a lot of nice memories
here.
But I will be camping out at the new place. Maybe like a 24-hour opening night of college hoops type of deal that we need to do.
Let's be real. We need to bring it back. We need to bring back the Bracket Busters. And we need to bring back...
Doorbusters.
And we need to bring back the Vegas 16. Do you remember Vegas 16?
Oh, yeah, of course.
We got to bring it back.
I feel like there should be a 16, like a rotation around the West Coast cities. Obviously, the Avila Beach Classic will be coming soon.
Yeah. Details, stay put.
Yeah.
The Slow Late Show Avila Beach Classic.
That's right.
And it's going to be, we've revamped the idea, right? We originally came out of this as an MTE, multi-team event. We were just going to bring like 4 mid-majors in. Cal Poly would be the host school. But you and I got to talking after the Super Bowl on Sunday. And look, for us out west, people don't realize, like, the Super Bowl wraps up around dinner time. Like, I need more.
Yeah.
Like, give me more. Give me something. Give me some dessert, right?
Right.
Like, you got college hoops early on, Super Bowl Sunday, the Puppy Bowl, all that good stuff leading up to the actual game. And then after the game, just nothing?
We have games all day to begin the day to lead up to the Super Bowl. We have, like, Big Ten basketball. We had a couple of really good NBA games. Why not have a post?
A neutral...
A dessert.
A neutral site game between a West Coast conference school and a Mountain West school. Look, those are two conferences that are trying to get more teams into the tournament than the usual 2 or 3. So it's a great resume builder. And what we tip at like 8 Pacific.
Oh, yeah.
To make sure the game's over and make sure both teams can watch the game.
People are still, like, on the verge of blacked out after their parlays hit, after their over-unders for the number of flips in the air for the coin. So they're ready for some basketball, right? Right. And I think we can even institute an automatic qualifier for maybe 4 or 8 different West Coast conferences, maybe even one East Coast as the wild card. Let's say, you finish 5th in the WAC.
Right.
They're in. You're coming to Avila Beach the second weekend of February.
For the next season.
For the next season, yeah.
So coin flip it, like the 5th place team in the WAC against the
number 2 Big West.
The 2nd place team in the Big West.
Yeah, and then Cal Poly obviously is always going to be there. They're going to be the hosts. They're gonna have a big dinner buffet the night before at Don Oberhelm's house, his palatial estate, which I believe is somewhere in the county, but we can neither confirm nor deny.
Yeah, well, it's incorporated land.
The WCC, maybe the 9th place finisher. The Pac-12, the 4th place finisher.
Yeah, that's about equal.
Yeah. We'll get the net rankings in there.
So how many teams are in this event?
Well, we're still trying to figure out whether there are going to be some first round buys. If it's a round robin, it could be a round robin.
Right.
I mean, you could extend through like to Tuesday. You have the opening games on Sunday, or do you want to open the games on Friday? Like there's still some details to work out here, but I think we have a good base.
I agree.
The people want it.
I agree.
I've heard at least one other person say they want it.
Or here's what we do, just so we wouldn't have to mess with teams' conference schedules too much.
Yeah.
We play the quarters and semis around Thanksgiving.
Oh yeah.
And we bring back the 2 semifinal winners.
Right.
They don't see each other until Super Bowl Sunday.
Free airfare from Allegiant.
Yes.
Into beautiful Santa Maria International Airport.
Sorry, it's got to go into Santa Maria.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
I mean, we have the sponsors.
It's not a bad trip.
No, there's free parking.
There's free parking, and it's a beautiful drive from Santa Maria to SLO.
You
lot
got
of
little
ocean.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So
the drive to Pismo. I mean, we'll make sure they leave or they come through Pismo right at either sunset or sunrise. I guess sunrise wouldn't count, but sunset over the ocean.
That would be nice.
Maybe get some 80s tunes in there. It's a real experience.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, Super Bowl has a halftime performer. We'll go get the best sounding group at Frog and Peach, and we'll take them to halftime of the Avila Beach Classic.
I think Rihanna was actually at Frog and Peach last year.
She was last year.
Yeah.
That's where. Yeah.
That's why I'm getting upset with people who say this is their first performance in 5 years. Like, no, she was.
No.
I'm pretty sure.
Were you surprised that she didn't bring out anybody else? I was okay with it. I mean,
I was okay with it.
She's got so many hits that she was able to put on a great show solo. But I thought we might see Jay-Z or we might see Drake pop out.
Yeah.
I was kind of hoping Drake would pop out.
Well, and then the one cue of the potential of Kanye coming out with all the lights. That was getting people a little. Is he gonna? Man, he wasn't gonna come, but.
That would have been controversial.
That would have overshadowed the end of the game. That's for sure. It just in that moment when that came on.
Worse, the end of the game or Kanye coming out halftime.
Well, Kanye might have been actually refereeing. He might have called that holding.
I think I would have liked to see Isaiah Pacheco run that in and give Philly a chance. I get it though. I mean, it's about winning.
Yeah.
Because think about it like this: he runs in, leaves time. Philly marches down the field, they score, they go for 2, they win the Super Bowl. Better ending for us, the fans.
Yeah.
But, like, if you're Andy Reid, how do you explain that?
Right. Well, I think for the Chiefs, this may be the turning point for not for the team itself, but the perception. A lot of fans still like the Chiefs. Andy Reid is an affable guy. Patrick Mahomes is on every other commercial, which I don't care for, but people seem to like his State Farm commercials.
As long as it's not Jackson Mahomes.
See, he was the seed. He was the seed of
Right.
doubt about
Right.
okay, maybe they're villains.
Right.
But people pulled away, the commercials, Andy Reid is in the commercials now. But now that you see that they were vying for the penalty. They were advocating for the penalty. They weren't just like, no, don't. They were pointing, they were saying, hey, give us this game. I think that could be, once the championship parade, the champagne wears out, you kind of, you wash the champagne-soaked clothes, and the talking heads next week, they say,
Right.
wait a second,
Right.
we got to come up with something about the NFL. Maybe it's too early for draft talk. Oh, I know. It's not too early for draft talk. They're talking draft.
Not here.
But there's two things that the national media talks about. That's football and the NBA. And, like, every once in a while, they'll be like, oh, yeah, baseball's coming.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, March Madness? It's around the corner? Okay, we'll talk about that for a little bit.
The NHL, from a media standpoint, gets absolutely no
Which
love.
is strange, because now it's on ESPN and TNT.
Like, arguably, there are some Sports Center nights that, are kind of dominated by Barry Melrose. But you could make an argument that, like, the MLS has almost caught up to the NHL.
I agree.
Like, in popularity.
Yeah.
Like,
They've done a really good job of marketing, I think, just the atmosphere. How good the fans are, how fun the games are, the rivalry matchups. They've done a good job of that. And I think that really helps. Whereas the NHL, it's kind of the same experience that, people are used to from however long it's been. And it's a good game. Like, it's fun to watch, especially in person. I think that's, once you get someone to watch a game in person,
yeah, that's when they get hooked.
that's when they get hooked. And that happened to me. Jamie, my wife, now my wife, who was not my wife at the time, my girlfriend at the time, we went to a Kings Sharks game in the playoffs. Sharks win in overtime. It was fantastic. It was
Sold.
just absolutely sold.
Sold.
For me. She was into it for like 2 years, and then she kind of lost interest. But that's why we have the ace in the hole for the Slow Late Show. When he comes out of hiding from cleaning up from his... So he and I were talking about doing a show on Saturday night, but he had to do some cooking. No, I'm sorry. On
Who is this?
Stephen Hodges. Stevie Hotcakes.
Steve Hotcakes.
Yeah, Stephen Hotcakes.
A great blogger these days.
Yeah, oh yeah, of course. We tried to give some of his picks, although apparently I heard afterwards they weren't great, so probably best for Stephen if we didn't give his takes. But there wasn't some advice. If you're giving picks, like bold what you're doing, and then you can give the explanation. But I was trying to search through a wall of text to try to get his quick picks there. I couldn't find them. But he is a huge hockey fan, and he and I have some nice hockey conversations.
He
via
plays
text.
hockey, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, he's the resident hockey aficionado. Although I don't know, he does play hockey still, but he's more he talks about his rolling at Paragon Brazilian Jiu Jitsu these days. But we'll have him on to talk NHL from time to time, especially when the playoffs start rolling around.
Absolutely. We need it.
We need it. The fans want it.
We of course they do.
Man, we'll bring in
We don't-
JP if we need someone to holler about hockey this day and age isn't what it used to be.
Is it fair to say this about hockey? Basketball, we have the 3-point heavy era, right?
Yeah.
Everyone says, "Oh, Steph Curry changed the game." Kids grow up wanting to take 30-foot shots now, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
We're in that era of the NBA. The NBA's had a bunch of different eras, right? Like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, like all different stuff. Baseball, you have pitcher-friendly eras, you have hitter-friendly eras.
It's going to be a new era starting this year with no shift.
For sure. NFL, you don't have drastic rule changes. I guess the tackle stuff is, interchangeable. You had that 1 year where you could challenge pass interferences, and that was a debacle in itself. But we're kind of in an era now where, like, the dual threat quarterback is really, like, a thing in the NFL. And I think we saw that with Jalen Hurts really, like, for the first time in a Super Bowl. Like, the way Philly uses Jalen Hurts is unlike the way any other team uses its quarterback. And it's risky because Jalen Hurts is a terrific player, and I'm, kind of pleasantly surprised at how he's blossomed into just such a consistent NFL guy. And obviously, I mean, unfortunately, his unforced fumble, mishandling of the ball, kind of overshadows the fact that he accounted for 4 touchdowns in the game and most certainly would have been MVP if Philly won. But, like, that, to me, that's the era we're in the NFL now, right? I mean, Bryce Young has that escapability. C.J. Stroud. I mean, those guys can stand in the pocket and deliver and throw for over 300 yards a game, but, like, these guys are big. They're physical. Justin Fields comes to mind as well. They can run the ball. That's not to say every team. And, look, Patrick Mahomes is by no means what I would consider a dual threat. He can use his legs, but, he's more of a traditional pocket passer, and he can make things happen on his feet. But to me, that's the era we're in the NFL. And I'm not as big into hockey as you are, but would you say that if the NHL is actually falling behind, and the media likes to portray things differently than they actually might be for fans, but if the NHL is falling behind in popularity, is it because it lacks an identity change type of era?
Possibly. I mean, there is a lot of scoring, especially this year. I think scoring is up, over the last couple of years, kind of akin to the NBA. The NBA scoring has exploded this year. But, they have a generational, even generational is probably not a high enough praise for Connor McDavid. Connor McDavid is pretty much the LeBron.
Right.
As a 24, 25-year-old
because he had that hype coming into the NHL.
And
he's lived up to it.
He is far and away the best player in the league.
Right.
And he has the physical gifts, he has the intelligence, he has everything. He's a very, if you look at his playoff success, LeBron, he made the finals, once early in his Cavs tenure, but they didn't play well. They got swept by the San Antonio Spurs. And, he was kind of criticized for all that. Hockey, it's a little different. You can't be, just a singular guy because there's a goalie, which makes a big difference, and then 4 other guys on the ice, and shifting. If you're the best player on your hockey team, you're only going to play like 40% of the minutes, and that's usually defenseman. But he's far and away the best player in the league, and he has a real possibility of becoming, top 5, even top 2 alongside Wayne Gretzky. And I think, and I was speaking of Stephen Hodges, we were texting the other day about what hockey needs to do to get on that next level. And I think, honestly, with the way the media is nowadays and kind of, just not even just the media, but everything with our attention spans being low and smartphones and, the yelling and screaming on TV about, whether Dak Prescott is good or not, whether LeBron's the best or not. You need like a Stephen A. Smith type of guy who is going to yell and create controversy about hockey. Like, people love Barry Melrose. They think he's cool. He has a slick back hair. He's got the smooth style. But he is not going to get people who don't really already enjoy hockey. Like, they enjoy Barry Melrose, but they don't see him and they don't say, all right, I need to learn more about hockey. Or, like, I need to get passionate about hockey. If there was some guy named, Braden Johnson, I don't know. I came up with Braden because I feel like every 20-year-old or less is called Braden or Jaden or something.
Yeah.
Someone like that comes through.
Or Aiden.
Or Aiden, yeah.
Yeah.
Parents, really, the creativity kind of plummeted around 2000 or so. Chris, that's a solid name.
Yeah,
Chris.
90s.
Alex, yeah, good. I had like 5 Alexes on one soccer team once.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a wild year. And that's not even talking about on the field.
Oh, how many hat tricks?
Oh, the hats were flying all the time. People, they brought many hats, and left with none. But if you have someone who can get people interested about that, and I feel part of it's also because while TNT and ESPN have hockey, they don't highlight it as much. I feel like that ESPN does a better job of highlighting the UFC. There are so many commercials around UFC, especially when there's a big pay-per-view. You can't miss it. They always talk about it during games. You're watching college basketball game on ESPN or Wednesday or Friday night hoops for the NBA. If there is a UFC fight coming up that Saturday, they're going to talk about it. They're gonna promote it. And I feel like I don't get that same type of deal from hockey. So it's many different things. It's the promotion. It's the lack of someone to kind of create that controversy and whatnot. And then it's just like, I feel like the NHL is Gary Bettman is their commissioner. He's not great at his job. I think there's a lot of things in play. There's a lot of potential there. But if you look at MLS, they've done a much better job of promoting. And they've focused on the local rivalries, stuff like Seattle versus Portland, the New York teams, the LA teams. I mean, El Tráfico, even if you weren't a fan of soccer, when Zlatan came in for LA Galaxy and played against LAFC when they were like the hot new team,
right,
that was a big deal. And they had some really exciting games, to get that kicked off and get some interest going. So if you have some really fun games, maybe in the playoffs, now that ESPN and TNT both have the rights for the NHL this season, when the playoffs come around, if there's some good games, that could help. But you really need that person to really back the league that already has kind of some clout with sports fans, I think. So, yeah.
We never really got to college hoops.
Yeah, I was just thinking that too. We talked about Purdue for like a split second. They're 1-3 in their last 4.
Yeah. And this is a night after Alabama loses by, 10 at Tennessee?
Yeah.
And Tennessee had just lost home games to Missouri and Vandy.
Last second shots, both of them.
Right. Still losses.
But still losses.
And Tennessee had a bad loss at Florida not long ago. I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it when you have a year like this where there's not a head and shoulders above everybody else, number one.
Agreed.
And last year was kind of similar. Like, there wasn't a convincing number one out there. I think Kansas was always a good team, but I don't think anybody had them head and shoulders above everybody else.
Arizona was good for most of the year.
Arizona was really good last season. I think a lot of people thought Duke would send out Coach K on top. Nobody really saw North Carolina doing what they did, going all the way to the championship. And I think that's kind of the year we have on our hands again this year. Like, who's the St. Peter's this year? I don't know. Like Charleston and Florida Atlantic, I know FAU got re-ranked and then lost tonight.
Yeah.
But, like, there's got to be a story like that, because we've had it each of the last 2 tournaments. We had St. Peter's last year, and 2 years ago we had Oral Roberts. By the way, Oral Roberts is undefeated in their league. They're 14-0, a really good mid-major program.
They just beat North Dakota tonight, though, by like 5. And North Dakota is not good. There was a lot of mid-major kind of action tonight. You talked about FAU losing after being ranked. Youngstown State, they're leading their conference, but they killed Milwaukee, who was number 2. South Alabama, Southern Miss was top 25 in RPI, and they got killed by an under 500 South Alabama team. That would have been, I think, like Southern Miss is like 23-4. They were coming into tonight. So, it does. Like you said, it feels like one of those years where someone's going to make a run to the Elite Eight that no one sees coming. Like a 20-12 mid-major team that was number 5 in their conference tournament ended up winning it. And I agree. I like this style of college hoops where you don't have a Gonzaga who is unbeaten for the year. And those stories are fun every once in a while. You don't want to go forever without having that kind of intrigue of, all right, this team's 31-1 coming in, or 34-0 going to the final. Something like that. That is a good story to mix in every so often. You saw Kentucky when they were loaded back with Karl Anthony Towns and everyone, and they lost to Wisconsin in the Final Four.
I think everybody fell in love with that Wisconsin team.
Yeah.
Like Frank the Tank, Sam Decker, Nigel Hayes. Like, to me, that Wisconsin team was one of the more memorable non-champions of the last decade in the tournament. Up there with Wichita State, who made a great run but ran into the great story that was Louisville, right? I mean, everyone loved Louisville. Kenny Payne, was that the dude who had the horrific leg injury?
Yeah.
And then came back, and then I want to say he transferred somewhere else.
He did.
To finish up his college career. That's a good trivia question.
VCU with Shaka that first time.
VCU, I mean, the fact that I was thinking about this today because, and we'll get to some NBA, but like Brad Stevens taking Butler to back-to-back national championships when they were in the Horizon League.
Yeah.
Like, that's unheard of. I feel bad. I mean, the closest they might ever get to a national title, and I know they're in the Big East now, but that hasn't been a smooth move for them.
No, it has not.
Was Gordon Hayward almost banking in the half-court shot against Duke.
That was incredible. I mean, they were inches away from winning the title game on a last-second half-court shot. And now you look, and Gordon Hayward is pretty washed up in the NBA.
Yeah, Brad Stevens is the front office
went
guy.
From the coach of the year in the NBA to now a front office guy.
Which I think was always the best move for Boston, seeing how they've had all this success the last 2 years.
They get a new coach who was great, and then he decides to do some bad things with some owners' wives or general managers or whatever it was. And then they get a new coach, and he's doing fantastic, and doing great there. I really think.
Like, what's Purdue's biggest flaw in your mind? Because
obviously Edey is fantastic, but
there's a reason Edey isn't in like any NBA mock draft first rounds.
Yeah. Well, also, to me, it's not. He is not the problem.
He's not the problem.
It's the rest of the team. They have only one guy, Fletcher Hoyer. Yeah, who is averaging above double digits per game. He's averaging like 11 and shooting 38%. The rest of the team is below. Like, you can't have. If you have a guy averaging 23 and 11, whatever Edey's averaging, you got to have at least two guys who can come in and be consistent. And you look at their all their information from tonight when they lost. All right, so Purdue, they lost to Maryland. They need someone like Jameer Young. Jameer Young scored 20 points on them. Maryland beats them 68-54. Zach Edey had 18 points, 8 of 16. Not bad. Braden Smith scored 18 as well, but he's averaging 9.9 points a game, so it's not horrible. But you need someone who has, the sidekick, the guy who can come in and be like, hey, Edey, you don't need to score 30 and grab 15 boards tonight for us to win. Score 16. And I'll score 24, and we'll be able to do this together. And I just feel like there's maybe teams have figured out that, look, Purdue doesn't have any really consistent shooters around Edey. You can't really trust anyone to be consistent from game to game. If you just shut down Edey, keep him from scoring 25 plus, we have a good chance of knocking him off.
We're a month from March Madness, and I think Matt Painter is a good enough head coach to where he can make those adjustments in the next month to get Purdue back to a better place than they've been. But part of this feels like Purdue peaked.
Yeah.
Like, part of it feels like their best basketball was November, December, January. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the times, as we saw with North Carolina last year, it's all about getting hot right about now and then rolling that momentum into conference tournament and then eventual March Madness. So for a team like Purdue, like, mojo is such a big thing in college basketball. Like, everybody, for the most part, I'll say this, not everybody, but I think that's why the mid-majors are so tough to take down, especially like first halves. Like, doesn't it feel like there's a lot of games in the tournament where like the 13 seed, 14 seed, 15 seed, they kind of just linger, and then a lot of the times, more times than not, the higher seed, or rather the lower seed, pulls away in the second half. It's because those schools, they weren't going to be there unless they won their conference tournaments. They're coming off of that high from winning the conference tournament, and they're rolling that over to the first half, whereas, a middle-of-the-pack Big 12 or Big 10 team, you get thumped in the quarterfinals of your conference tournament, and you have this weird week and a half off, and then it's like, okay, well, we should beat this team by a lot, and then you wind up losing or you get blitzed. So for a team like Purdue, I feel like they've got to show us something, whether it's like winning the Big Ten tournament or having a decisive win against a pretty good team in the next couple. The problem with the Big Ten, man, is like it's good. It's a good conference. There's a lot of parity there, but it's not great.
Right. There's
like,
two ranked teams right now.
Yeah.
Purdue and Indiana.
Yeah, and Indiana just lost to Northwest. And Northwestern's good.
Yeah.
Northwestern's good this year.
Yeah, they'll probably be ranked come next week. But
Michigan shouldn't be in the dance.
Yeah.
I think Michigan State gets in. I think Iowa. I don't know. Does Iowa get into the dance?
Right.
That's a question mark.
Yeah. Iowa is 16-9, 8-6 in conference. I mean, it seems like they're talented enough with Chris Murray putting up big numbers. But yeah, there's a lot of parity there. Northwestern is in, Maryland is in. I think Illinois is in as well. But there's no one that you can beat in that conference and just say, like, all right, that was an enormous win. Like you have, maybe in half the games in the Big 12 or the top quarter of the SEC. I think, and even, I guess ACC is kind of the similar boat. ACC has maybe more teams in the top 3-4 that are like really dangerous to me. I think they're more dangerous than someone like Maryland or Northwestern. Duke is really good. I think once they cut down on turnovers and whatnot, they're good. Miami is really good. I think Miami can make a run in the tournament. But it seems like, unless there's some wild card, and we talked about this, it seems like the Big 12, with everything those teams have gone through, they have put themselves through the grind. SEC, even if there's not, even if the top half isn't as quality as the Big 12's top half, they're still, you look down, Colin Castleton just got hurt and he's out for the rest of the year, but Florida was not an easy out.
No.
Missouri is 7-6 in conference, and they are going to make the tournament easily. Somehow Vanderbilt is still hovering above 500. Arkansas is under 500 in the SEC, and they're 17-9. Mississippi State, there's pretty much only three teams in the SEC that are bad.
Nobody's talking about Kentucky.
Right. And they can sneak. I mean, Oscar Tshiebwe has not had the year people thought he would coming after last year.
That same can be said for Severe Wheeler.
Yeah.
I think, Kentucky's got an issue, and I don't know if the issue is, Coach Cal just kind of running his course there. I think they're, depending on how their season shakes out this year, I mean, they could be in a predicament where they barely sneak into the tournament as like a 10 seed and then wind up going to the Elite Eight. Then everything's fine, right? Everything's fine again. But this is not the Kentucky perennial top 10 team that we're accustomed to, and it hasn't really been that way for a few years. Like the Blue Bloods have really lost a step. Like Kansas is there. UCLA's underrated. Like UCLA's fourth in the country. I think Mick Cronin. I think UCLA embodies Mick Cronin. You remember like when they had their most recent coaching search, they wanted Jamie Dixon, they wanted some other names, and those other names didn't want to go to UCLA because Steve Alford's tenure was not good. Ben Howland, his message kind of ran old after those two Final Fours in the early 2000s where they came up short against Florida. But I think Mick Cronin, who's not really like a sexy hire, who's just kind of about his business, not a flashy head coach, not an emotional head coach, he just does his job. Like, I think Mick Cronin is such a perfect fit there, and I think UCLA has Final Four capabilities. Like, there's nothing that they're super great at. They're just really fundamentally sound, and they have enough talent and they have enough athleticism, I feel like, to make a run. Like, they're not going to be an easy team to beat.
Oh, for sure.
In March.
And they obviously have a lot of experience in those deep run scenarios with Jaime Jaquez and Tiger Campbell, Jalen Clark. And yeah, when UCLA had that search, I mean, it seemed like they were looking for a West Coast guy. And some of those West Coast guys turned them down, like you said. Mick Cronin, who is from Ohio, succeeded in Ohio. UCLA said, all right, he's obviously done well, but not exactly the same aura or vibe as SoCal that we kind of want. they took that chance, and it's worked out really well for them. So, yeah, I think they in Arizona are both really quality teams atop the Pac-12. Utah, I don't know what to make of Utah. SC, I feel like SC should be better. Watching a lot of the games with Drew Peterson, he seems like he has the talent to be an All-American type, in my opinion. He never can have consistency. He's a senior now, so obviously it's not going to happen. But they seem like they could be trouble for some teams if and when they make the tournament. Oregon, it seemed like they were kind of on the upswing, but then they just lost to Washington. So yeah, Pac-12 is kind of iffy. I think that's just kind of the story of this season. Besides the Big 12, which is absolutely stacked, the SEC in the top half, the Big East to a certain extent, with UConn, Marquette, Creighton, Xavier, Providence, those teams are all really good. There's not any teams that really stand out that just say we're great, besides like Houston, maybe St. Mary's. But it's gonna be fun.
It's gonna be fun. Look, if I had to pick a true number one based off like eye test and what we've seen, I'd give a slight edge still to Bama. But I mean, this is the same Bama team that lost to a cold Tennessee team. Maybe Tennessee turns a corner from here. Tennessee had not been playing well the last couple weeks. They beat Bama by 10, and Bama got blown out of the water by an Oklahoma team that might not even go to the NIT.
Right.
So it's just, you never know what you're going to get on any given night, and I think that's what makes college basketball so great. And it's always been great, but I mean, it's just you never know anymore. Like Gonzaga losing a home game to LMU. Yeah. Like getting pushed to the wire by Pacific. Like, this stuff doesn't happen. Right. So you just wonder, and it's not what some people without a ton of knowledge about it would think. Like, think about Scoot Henderson, who's behind Victor, going to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft, going to be number 2. Now, Scoot Henderson is getting robbed of that college experience, or should we say, Scoot Henderson, by not going and playing college basketball, is maybe taking a little bit away from what he could add to this season. Not that you need somebody like that to make it exciting, but I don't really think it's a problem of these high school kids going to like the Ignite or going to Overtime Elite or going overseas. I just think that this is an era of college basketball where the transfer portal makes it so a lot of these mid-major teams are able to kind of reload right away and bring in Power 5 talent. And also the NIL stuff, sure, the bigger brand schools are going to have more money to throw at their guys, but even a school here like Cal Poly, like you get a millionaire or a multi-millionaire invested in your athletics, like you're probably able to dish out 30, 40K to a student athlete to bring him in. So, and that stuff's not heavily publicized up front. There are NIL deals that you hear about, you see on social media, but there's a lot of behind the back, under the table NIL deals that aren't necessarily name, image, and likeness, and is sort of just like a boatload of cash for those kids to go to those schools.
Hey, post an IG comment like every month on our latest car deal. But yeah, I know this is blasphemous coming from someone in SLO and who went to Cal Poly, and you work for Cal Poly. We both work with Cal Poly. But if you're Scoot Henderson and you're going to the NBA, why not just go to UC Santa Barbara for a season, man? Like, come on, live the college life in cover your ears, everyone at Cal Poly, at the best place to go. Like, I guess the worry is like you're just gonna get sucked in and like maybe get arrested for drunken under the influence, like walking around State Street let's say Cal Poly too. You're drunk on Higuera Street, and I don't think you're gonna get charged. I think people are gonna say like, hey, that guy is gonna be the number 2 overall pick. Yeah. Even Victor, Victor Wembanyama.
Hey, look, we just had a top 10 draft pick in baseball. Yeah. Coming here didn't do anything bad to his stock.
That's right. Well, he grew up here, so that's a little
different.
But It's a little different. You're in town. You've lived here in town. You're not going to have that new college. Like, if you grow up in a college town on the California coast, like, you got it pretty well made. But if you didn't grow up there and then you move there, like that, can't take that year away. You know, just the next Scoot Henderson who's listening right now, thinking, do I want to go to Overtime Elite? Do I want to go to Ciudad de Capitanes for a year? I don't know if they have an agreement in place to allow would-be college freshmen there. Or do I want to go to a Big West school on the beach and be treated like a rock star? I don't know. I know what I'd
Well,
pick.
and think about it from this perspective, too. Like, the Ignite is in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Scoot Henderson's like 18 or 19 years old. Like, what can you even do in Las Vegas, like being under 21?
Well, I mean, legally, or what can you do,
Legally.
like, de facto?
Yeah, well, you can de facto do probably a lot of things there.
I don't like the same thing with you're stumbling down Higuera Street. They
you're
see
18
your
or-
face, yeah. Unless you're like, causing property damage or harassing the locals. I don't think they're going to get you. So, I know Vegas has a little stricter policy. They're pretty uptight there about making sure they have the IDs in place. But, I think that's our advice for the youngins today. You're thinking about going to the NBA. I know there's a lot listening right now. Come to Cal Poly, go to UCSB. Hey, you can go to a place like Fullerton or something. No, don't go to Fullerton. I just remembered my days of going to Fullerton, and that's the suburbs, or like the sprawl. So don't go there.
Like Irvine, it's like 15 minutes
yeah.
to Newport.
Yeah, Irvine's nice. That was a nice campus. in
UC San
2007.
Diego, like their new D1.
Yeah.
La Jolla.
Yeah.
La Jolla.
Okay.
Doesn't get much better.
Okay,
than La
but then
Jolla.
you're competing with San Diego State,
That's
and
true.
like
Yeah, might as well just go to San Diego
right,
State.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'm gonna take a break and we'll come back and we can
Shift
talk-
gears to pro round
Some
ball.
Pro round ball. Giannis hurt. Oh my God, what's gonna happen? Is
Still
he
ahead.
still ahead on the SLO Late Show? You can hear it here, and only here. We have the scoop. You don't want to miss it. We'll be right back.
I get no kick from champagne.
The sports fight music.
Alcohol doesn't
This
thrill me
is
at
the
all.
sports fight on ESPN
Tell me
fucking
why
radio.
shouldn't it be true?
They're fucking drunk.
I get a kick out of brew.
What a game here.
Yeah,
There's only one beer left. Rappers screaming all in our ears like we're deaf. Tempt me, do a number on the label. Beat up all the MCs and drink them under the table like it's on me. Put it on my tab, kid, however you get there. Foot it, cab it, iron horse it. You leave it on your face, forfeit. Across the mic, hold it like the heat, he might toss it. Told her, tell him they stole it. He told her he lost it. She told him get off it and a bunch of other more shit. Getting money, DTs be getting no new leads. It's like he eating watermelon, stay spitting new seeds. It's the weed, give me some of what he drooping off. Soon as he wake up, choking like it was whooping cough. They grouping soft. First hour at the open bar and they trooping off. He went to go laugh and get some head by the side road. She asked him autograph her derriere red to wide load. This yard bird tastes like fried toad, turd, love villain. Take pride in code words, crooked eye mode, nerd geek with a cold heart. Probably still be speaking in rhymes as an old fart. Study how to eat to die by the pizza guy. No, he's not too fly to skeet in a squeeze a eye, a squeeze a thigh. Maybe give her curves a feel the same way she feel it when he flow with nerves of steel. They call her super when they need their back plumbing fix. Howard's only one left, the pack coming 6. Whatever happened to 2 and 3? A herb tried to slide with 4 and 5 and got caught. Like what you doing, G? Don't make him have to get cutting like truancy. Matter of fact, not for nothing right now, you and me, looser than a pair of Adidas. I hope you bought your spare tweeters. MCs sound like cheerleaders, rapping and dancing like Redhead Kingpin. Doom came to do the thing again, no matter who be blingin'. He do it for the smelly hubbies. Seeds know what time it is, like it's time for Teletubbies. Few can do it, even fewer can sell it. Take it from the dude who wear a mask like a tarted helmet. He plots shows like robberies. In and out, 1, 2, 3, nobody's please. Run the cash and you won't get a wet sweatshirt. The mic is the shotty, nobody moves, nobody get hurt. Bring heat like the boy done go on the wall. He came in the door and everybody on the floor. A whole string of jobs like we on tour. Every night, on the score, coming to your corner store.
South Africa has been mind-programmed. All of the world's leaders on Earth are under my control. And when they meet tomorrow in special session, I, Doom, shall be voted master of the world. My plan is foolproof, but just in case.
And what about Smo?
Now you keep your eyes open. When I tell you, start snapping.
Oh, yeah, sure. Ladies and gentlemen, I am risking my life to tell you with great concern that I must warn you. You must listen. Many among you have had their minds taken over. What a story! Start snapping.
Dude, gosh, I wish I'd brought my autograph.
Your attempts at humor bore me.
Right, Leadhead.
Yeah.
You're weird. Why is everyone staring at us?
Oh, I should have realized. We must look like freaks to them.
Relax, mister. Just do your thing.
Get a good...
Talking Giannis. Here he is. He's back. Giannis posted breaking news 16 minutes ago. Twitter.com/Giannis_AN34. He said, regarding what happened tonight, great team win, flex. But he hurt his hand. He sprained his hand. I don't think it's...
Part of me feels like this was planned because his family would rather go on a vacation than spend the next 5 days in Salt Lake City.
Well, he did tag his brother Thanasis. I think Thanasis may be taking Giannis' spot in the All-Star game. His defense in the crunch time or garbage time has really been top-notch this year. Now it looks like Giannis might be out of the All-Star game, which sucks. It looks like Joel Embiid will be out as well. He keeps talking about...
Isn't one of the teams Team Giannis?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, I guess
Can he coach him virtually?
You know, that actually would be a pretty good marketing thing. Just like, he is coaching from the Bahamas. We're getting the highest speed Zoom available, so there's no lag. He can shout orders like Tibbs from the sideline virtually.
It'll ring throughout the arena, too.
Yeah. We can have Bing try to talk its way into becoming the overlord of the NBA. Have you seen any of this Bing talk? The AI, Bing, the Microsoft search engine.
Yeah, I didn't know they made it.
They
It's
just
still around.
No, apparently it's
Is
becoming
Firefox still around?
Firefox. I'm not sure what they're up to these days. I do know that when I had it, they were really bugging me about becoming the default browser, and I just said no. But Bing apparently is becoming self-aware as we speak. People are having conversations with the new Bing AI, and it's saying stuff like, "I don't want to be here." Oh yeah, really. Like the first 20 minutes of a horror, like a Terminator-themed horror film.
Yeah.
So watch out for that if you start seeing nuclear weapons fly. It may not be Vlad. It may be Bing. But Giannis coaching from the Bahamas, that'd be fun. I do think there's some worthy guys to fill in. It may be too late to bring someone in. It's
Probably.
Thursday. I'm sure you guys are already in Salt Lake City, ready to go to Applebee's.
Call up like Mac McClung.
Okay, speaking of McClung, I am not excited about the dunk contest. He's in it.
Yeah,
We have Trey Murphy.
Are we ever getting notable names back in the dunk contest?
So I was thinking today, you got to either have notable names or guys who just are out of this world athletic. Like Shaden Sharp, when he was in it, in his 49-inch vertical, like that, I was excited about that. But then he said something about he wants to focus on the team. Like this seems, his decision to pull out seems like a very Chauncey Billups. Like, hey, we're not playing well here. My job's in the line. You can't be out there doing dunks. Like that just seems like such like a Chauncey Billups 2004 Pistons. Like we don't do dunks, type of thing. So that was a bummer that he pulled out. But yeah, you either need him, you need someone like Levine, who Levine's I guess getting older, quote unquote. But even if he still has that bounce, he can do it. who is a Derek Jones Jr., someone like that who can absolutely jump. But then you got to have, if like Ja Morant was in it, who obviously has both the jump ability, it's Wazism right there, and the star power. Even if it was something like Giannis. Like, Giannis doesn't have a lot of, like, really fancy dunks, but just his obviously aura and charisma and whatnot. Yeah, you need someone to either bring one of those two variables. Having Mac McClung, which, I mean, he's the token, like, white guy point guard. He went to Texas Tech, right?
He started somewhere else.
Right.
He went to Georgetown at first.
Yes.
And then he went to Texas Tech.
Right. So we got him. We got Trey Murphy the third. We got KJ Martin, which, solid dunker, but not exactly
Who?
royalty.
Exactly.
Kenyon Martin Jr., yeah.
We know.
Best known for
We don't
his
really know.
who his dad is.
Yeah, that's...
And then...
that was a good player.
Who was the fourth? I don't remember who the fourth is.
See, that tells you everything you need
There
to
you
know
go.
about what's wrong with the dunk contest.
There, I thought you were saying
Like-
country at first.
Well, that was my other talk show.
Yeah,
earlier
yeah. Oh,
today.
yeah.
Filled in for Rush, but that's besides the point. We're in a weird place with that. I mean, it's like in baseball. Like, what if stars stopped appearing in the home run derby?
Yeah.
Like, I get it. Like, Pete Alonso is not a superstar in baseball. He's a really good player, power hitter, whatever. He's not a superstar, but he's, like, more notable within baseball than anybody is in the NBA who's going to this dunk contest.
Right, and it helps that he's in New York, so he has that built in.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's just, it's like we grew up in an era where superstars were in the dunk contest.
Yeah.
Like-
Jericho Sims is the fourth contestant. He'll probably win it. He's got a lot of bounce, but he's a big guy. He
Blake
has-
Griffin would jump over a car. Gerald Green would put a cupcake on the rim, blow out the candle, and dunk it on the way by. Like, we used to have
J. Rich. I mean, J. Rich was a
Dwight
phenomenal-
Howard Superman cape.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, there's got to be,
Vince Carter.
I mean, exactly. When does Adam Silver step in? And look, it doesn't mean that much, right? But when does Adam Silver step in and say, look, the only people allowed in the dunk contest are all-stars?
Yeah, or offer like $5 million for the winner. I mean, it's got to be something like that. You got to have bring Kia back in. Like, hey, Kia, sell a couple more cars, gets that revenue up, and let's give it to some high profile players. Give them some incentive. You still have high profile players in a 3-point contest because there's no risk. It's just fun. And I guess the dunk contest, they think there's a risk of tearing an ACL or something. And then, the changes with the All-Star game with the, what is it called? The fourth quarter type deal. You got to score 24.
Elam
ending, yeah. Which
target score
has been popularized in the Arroyo Grande Community Center playoffs. So that's a nice little touch. But really, you need to bring some stars into the dunk contest. And maybe we'll eat our words if they put on an all-timer. I don't see it happening.
No, I don't see it. But I think a lot of it is just getting people to their TVs to want to watch this.
Yeah.
Because if there's good college hoops on and a bunch of no-name NBA players in a dunk contest, I'm watching college hoops.
Right. And they put it on a Saturday, which is obviously a big day for college hoops. You can't just bribe college hoops and be like, hey, don't do any games on Saturday. Like the NFL pretty much has that hold over college football. When they have games on Saturday, college football is like, college football won't do a Monday. They won't compete with the NFL when they have any choice. We're talking about Gonzaga and LMU. Gonzaga is blowing the doors off them to begin the game, 21-4.
I had a feeling that would happen. I think, for Gonzaga to get motivated for a WCC game that's not St. Mary's at this point is probably difficult for them, and honestly probably difficult for Mark Few. I mean, how many times can you run through the WCC, spank everybody year after year, have 2 competitive games with St. Mary's? That hasn't been the case this year.
Yeah.
But Gonzaga, I had a feeling they'd get up for this one.
And you knew, like, you felt like, all right, we've talked about it's a month to go before the tournament. You got to start kicking things into gear. Do the opposite of what Purdue is doing right now. You got to start getting things in line. Maybe Gonzaga didn't have the best defense in the first 2/3 of the season, but now it's time, if you have some extra reserves to get that thing working in motion, now is probably the time to do it. So we did have 3 NBA games tonight. Talked about the Bucks a little bit over the Bulls. I think the Bulls, we talked about this a little bit off the air before we started. The Bulls, of any team, it seemed like that had stars, to some extent, that should have just blown things up, and they didn't. Like that, it was pretty surprising to me. Now they lost to the Bucks tonight. Giannis only played part of the game. The Bulls are now 26-33. They lost at home to the Bucks by 12. I think they've lost 6 in a row now. Nikola Vucevic, look, he's gonna give you like 20 and 10. But you're never going to really be inspired by anything he does. No. He's a bad defender.
Remember when they got him at the deadline last year?
That was huge.
And people thought that was going to help them maybe turn the corner and make a deep playoff run. And I don't think they got out of the first round.
Right.
Or then play-in last year?
No, I think they made it past the play-in. Or they didn't. I'll check it while I'm talking really quick. But so there's no DeMar DeRozan tonight. But you just have this feeling that DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine just do not get along. Both of those guys are guys that want to take that last second shot. And Vucevic, for whatever faults it is that he doesn't seem to be like the alpha type of guy, he seems to be okay with setting screens, the last few minutes of the game, letting either of those guys work. But both of those guys want to be the guy to take the shot. And, if one guy takes it and misses it, the other guy's going to be pouting. The Bulls last year, they were 46-36. They lost in the first round. They were I don't know what seed they were, but they lost in the first round to the Milwaukee Bucks in 5 games. And, there were some inklings there when that happened that this may not work, but you have another offseason with everyone together and let things happen. But once, the end of January comes for them and they're not playing well, I think Billy Donovan is probably one of the worst coaches in the NBA. I thought that was a horrible hire when they first did it. He is a good college coach. There is a big difference between a college coach and an NBA coach. There is in college or in football, there is in basketball. They're the same sport in essence, but there are much bigger differences in personalities. Billy Donovan has the kind of teacher that's kind of, he is molding a younger mind type of guy. He's going to teach more of the basics and, kind of the teamwork that comes along with that. Once you're in the NBA, especially guys who are making $40 million a year around there, like LaVine or DeRozan are, you're going to have a harder time trying to have the same tactics that you did in college. Right. Even when you have guys like Joakim Noah and all the guys back in the day for Florida when they won back-to-back titles. Like Joakim Noah, I'm sure he had some feisty moments in the locker room with Billy Donovan. But he was 20 years old at the time. He wasn't the guy who was making $30 million a year who thought, I'm making this money, I want to take the last shot. And Billy Donovan was always going to be a disaster. He wasn't good in Oklahoma City. And if there was any time for them to say, you know what, even if it's just one of the 3 between DeRozan, LaVine, and Vucevic, just blow it up. Let guys like Ayo Dosunmu have a little more running the offense. There's not enough balls in play there. Literally, there's only one ball on the court for these guys all to be happy. And this was, they missed their chance, I think.
I think they missed their chance. I think they have to find a way to move either LaVine and or DeRozan in the offseason. Look, the last time the Bulls were good, it's because they blew it up. They were really bad. They got Derrick Rose number 1 overall. And unfortunately, if Derrick Rose didn't have the injury problems he had, who knows what happens with that Bulls franchise, right? Because you obviously try to keep supermaxing him out, keep trying to surrounding him with talent. And if he doesn't fall off injury-wise, he probably wins more than 1 MVP, right?
They probably win a title.
Probably.
With him as the offensive, everything, and then guys like Joakim Noah and Luol Deng and Tom Thibodeau coaching, that was, in that era of the NBA, that's exactly what you wanted. We talked about eras before, now, if you have that exact team with those exact skill players, maybe they turn into some sort of Memphis Grizzlies type team like they are now. John Morant is kind of similar to what Derrick Rose was back then.
How bad the Grizzlies had to be to get to where they are. They had to be bad for a while.
Yeah. And even they lucked out. I mean, it's not exactly a Michael Jordan being picked second overall.
Right.
But they could have had Zion. Zion, as great as he is, can't stay on the court. John Morant is the clear and away number one guy from that draft class as of now. Now Zion may become a Hall of Famer and put his injury things behind him. But as of now, John Morant is a top 10 player in the league, and Zion, is not.
And for whatever reason, it doesn't really feel like stars want to be in Chicago.
Yeah, I think it's the ownership group.
Like DeMar DeRozan, when he signed there, it was because his other offers were like mid-level exceptions.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was talking about joining the Heat, he's talking about joining the Lakers on a cheaper deal for a better chance to win a championship, and then the Bulls were like, "We'll give you $30 million a year."
Yeah.
And look, DeMar DeRozan's been the best he's ever been in a Bulls uniform, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he's had a ton of great late game shots. He's had a bunch of great individual games. I think last year, he was definitely better than he's been this year. He's still been good this year, but the Bulls need to blow it up. There's some mind-boggling players in the NBA, and I want to throw Dame Lillard, Bradley Beal in that conversation. Mm-hmm. I'm not a huge request your way to a contender type of guy. Like, it doesn't necessarily bother me when a player requests a trade, but it bothers me when a player requests a trade and then gives the team a list of 5. Like, okay, it's one thing for them to grant you your wish to get traded, but to be like, well, you can only trade me here.
Right.
That only works if you have a no-trade clause. A lot of these guys, like KD included, and KD did want to be in Phoenix, it sounded like, and, Brooklyn did right by him and made it happen. They didn't really care about where they shipped Kyrie. It was going to be anywhere but the Lakers. Right. Probably because Kyrie wanted to go to the Lakers.
Yeah.
So, it's just interesting to me how in the NBA where it's 5-on-5 and one player influences you so much that Dame Lillard and Bradley Beal at this point haven't found themselves into better situations.
Yeah, and on one hand, you admire any loyalty they have to the fans, the organization, the city, and whatnot. Especially with Dame, Dame has become, the face of the Trailblazers after, the kind of tragically cut short career of Brandon Roy when he was supposed to be the guy, and that last playoff game hurrah, which is still one of the best NBA moments of the last, this millennium. But, you thought maybe he and CJ were going to do something, and then you kind of saw the flaws with that, and 2 smaller guards who can both score but can't defend very well. It does seem like, and he's getting older. He's not going to get really any better than he is now. He's in his 30s, and at least for Bradley Beal, he's still in his 20s. You think, well, he can try it out some more. He has Kristaps there. Give him a full year maybe. Kyle Kuzma's been playing well. But for Dame, and we talked about this the last time we were on the air, what is there to get within the next 2 years? Let's say Dame has 2 more years at his top peak, where he's averaging close to 30 points a game before he starts turning into a little bit of a lesser version of himself. How do they possibly get to a top 4 seed in the West? Unless Anthony Simons becomes even better, in the next 2 years, which I think he can, but then you're back in a similar situation like CJ. I don't think Yusuf Nurkic, I think he's a solid player, but if you have him as your 3rd best player in your team, it's probably not a good thing.
No.
Jeremy Grant is a good piece, but, and I think, now that I'm thinking through it, I think a big problem is the fact that they hired Chauncey Billups. I don't think he's a good coach. I think he is a solid leader of men. He was a GM. He's like a good analyst when he was on ESPN. He's well spoken. He was obviously winning a championship for the Pistons back in 2004 as their de facto leader. But I just don't see the team buying into whatever principles he has, especially on defense. I mean, he kind of just seems to let Dame cook on offense, and he's supposed to be this defensive guy. And it's just not working. I think, it's hard to let a guy go, especially if he's only in his second season as a coach, like midway through the year, and bring in someone who can turn things around. So it's hard to criticize them for like not just firing him right now, because what good is that going to do? But they probably should have done more due diligence in their coaching search, because there are good coaches out there that you can see. The Celtics have cycled through 3 different good coaches in the last 5 years. One of them went to their front office, one of them got fired, and now they have their guy. And even if you just look at Sacramento, like Mike Brown, yes, he didn't do great. I guess with the situation he got in Cleveland, I mean they won a lot of games, but LeBron wasn't a big fan of him, which
right.
That's something that's happened a lot in LeBron's career. You really need an owner and a really strong president of operations that is going to say, no, LeBron, we're going to keep Eric Spoelstra. He's a really good coach. Or he's going to keep changing coaches. So that's LeBron for you. But if you come in and you spend some time with a really good coach in Steve Kerr, I guess there are some questions how much he does with that team. But Mike Brown comes into the Kings. Now, part of it is De'Aaron Fox got back to where he was a couple years ago. Domas Sabonis has been playing the best ball of his career. They've got some quality guys in Kevin Huerter and Malik Monk now, but they have turned this system for Sacramento into the third best team, at least record-wise, in the West, when me, as a Kings fan, was hoping for 500 in a play-in spot. So if you have a guy like Mike Brown sitting out there who could have been hired as your coach, and you go for a guy because he was Mr. Big Shot, I mean, look, that's not a way to run a franchise. And I think part of it was the fact that Paul Allen, who was the owner, passed away, and the ownership group was kind of in flux for a while. But it does seem like there are opportunities across the league, in Portland, possibly in Washington, definitely in Chicago, where teams are holding on to hope past the due date, where they just say, hey, we're hoping this somehow turns around. We have plan X, Y, and Z, but those plans aren't going to come into fruition. And if you look across the board, you really need that hard reset. You need to at least strike gold with a draft pick, unless you're a big market like LA or New York. Even you talked about Chicago. Chicago doesn't get the big free agents. If you're Brooklyn, the Knicks, the LA teams, you can get some stars in free agency, but otherwise you need to get some good draft picks, and that should have been what those teams you talked about were shooting for at the trade deadline, and just didn't go there.
It's interesting. There's a lot of teams I feel like in the NBA don't really have a direction, and it's almost worse to be on that middle ground where you're not that bad, but you're definitely not good enough to win a title. Then you're constantly picking anywhere from 8 to 15 in the NBA draft, and outside of the top 5, and obviously the top 5 is not a guarantee, but you could stack like a bunch of number 8 overall picks. Like how successful has the number 8 overall pick been in the last 5 years?
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
I mean, that's an interesting question.
Yeah.
That's something, but the Blazers and Wizards are there. Like they're not terrible like the Pistons. They're not terrible like the Rockets. So they're not going to get the Jalen Greens and the Jaden Ivies of the world and the Cade Cunninghams to try and make something happen, Jabari Smith. But, I mean, they just stay in mediocrity. I think mediocrity is the worst thing you can be in professional sports.
Yeah. And you look, there's always a potential if you do the homework and you strike it rich. Like Damian Lillard was somewhere between 7, 8, 9. Steph Curry was in that range. Giannis was like number 14. But you can't look at those and say, all right, we don't need to blow it up because look at what happened. We can find Nikola Jokic and we'll be fine. Like that, you can't bank on that at all. You have to have a strategy where, look, if you can't take it out of the oven when the timer comes off, and it's at least plausible that with one more piece you could become, and it's not adding like KD one more piece, but like adding a complementary piece, and now we're at least a finals contender. Like people wouldn't be shocked if we made the Western Conference or Eastern Conference Finals. You can't say that, and you have an aging star who's 32, 33 years old, like Dame Lillard or DeMar DeRozan, why hang on? Like, I guess you can say, like, Dame Lillard sells tickets, but I don't know what the Bulls' excuse is. Like, the Bulls, to me, are just, like, probably one of the worst situations in all of basketball because they are that mediocre team, because they have 3 guys who they are paying like stars, who should be stars, and they're 7 games under 500. They have a bad coach. Looking at the number 8 pick this year was Dyson Daniels, who got drafted by the Pelicans. Hasn't exactly lit the world on fire. Averaging. Why do we have total points here, not points per game? That doesn't seem like the
Well,
best.
you're supposed to do the math in your head.
Yeah. He has 600 points. The 8th seed last year for the Orlando Magic was Franz Wagner. Pretty good.
Pretty solid.
Pretty solid, but he's not going to change your team to a title contender. The New York Knicks took Obi Toppin in the 2020 NBA Draft, number 8 overall.
Okay.
2019, Jackson Hayes. So a little rim protection there. 2018, number 8 was Colin Sexton. Maybe a good 6-man type of deal. 2017, number 8 was Frank Ntilikina. So if you want a little bit of defense.
Is he still in the league?
That's a good question. Frank Ntilikina, I think he probably is like periphery. Yeah, he's on Dallas. He has started 3 games. He averages 12 minutes per game. Averages 2.5 points. So that was 2017. Let's go back to 2015. 2016 was Marquise Chris. He was obviously bust. And 2015, number 8 was the immortal Stanley Johnson,
who just got waived.
Right.
So okay, what if you're trying to build through the draft and you're stuck, right? Because 8's not a bad pick, but it's not a great pick. Like, you have all those guys on your roster. Where does that get you? It doesn't get you out of mediocrity. You either have to spend or you have to suck in the NBA.
Yeah.
And like your Kings, for example, like, you guys sucked for a long time, but you're able to get De'Aaron Fox, which changes the game. You build around him. Halliburton is able to net you Sabonis, and you're able to attract some veterans there because you spend a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Harrison Barnes, right? And all of a sudden, I mean, you have a good coach now, and you're finally out of mediocrity. Now, are you in a position to contend for a championship? Probably not, right? Not yet.
No.
But you're stepping there, right? You're at least
We're at least excited.
You're at least stepping in that direction. And for a franchise like the Kings, it's not really fair. It's not really fair.
We're not a regular
to be like to be like, oh, well, like a first round exit's bad. Like, that's first round exit's
ecstatic.
awesome.
Yeah.
Like,
oh my God, I can't wait for Game 6 lost at home, and I'm just gonna be crying tears of joy when we lose by 30.
But I mean, that's what we're talking about. Like with the Wizards and the Bulls and the Blazers, among others. Like, it's just you're not going anywhere. You could argue like the Lakers, and look, again, we had this conversation last week, and this was before they got Mo Bamba too. But the Lakers, their moves were great. They didn't give up a lot. Like, Rob Pelinka really undid a lot of his mishaps over the last couple years at this trade deadline, but the position that this team is in, 5 games under going into the All-Star break, which is less than 2 months away from the playoffs, with just the way the NBA schedule works. It's one of the later, All-Star games in all of sports in proximity to where they are in the season. Like the Lakers, like what do the Lakers look like 5 years from now? Because to me, this is just like what Kobe's final years and post-Kobe looked like for the Lakers, pre-LeBron. Like, when LeBron leaves the Lakers or LeBron retires as a Laker, I mean, the consensus is he's going to try to play a year with Bronny, wherever that is. But, like, where does that leave the Lakers? Because the Lakers don't have any young, intriguing talent that's going to be able to raise their franchise 4 years from now.
Right.
Like, you bring in D'Lo on an expiring, do you want to pay him what somebody else might pay him? I don't know if that's your best use of money in the offseason. Maybe you bring in Kyrie, right? But where does that get you? How long does Kyrie stay happy next to LeBron, a guy who he didn't want to play with in Cleveland?
Right.
towards the end. So
exactly.
it's just to me like the Lakers are in that spot to where like their fan base will tell you that right now 5 games under 500 out of the play-in that they still have a chance to win a championship this year. I think that's nonsense. But how does it get any better next year? Like LeBron is showing us that he's not really breaking down much. He's still a top 10 player in this league, but like AD is AD. You're not going to get him for more than 60 games in a regular season. Right. And the other guys that they brought in, like that's great, like Jared Vanderbilt, D'Angelo Russell, Beasley's a good shooter, but like that just doesn't move the needle, and those guys aren't going to be there 4 or 5 years from now.
Right.
Like I legitimately worry about what the Lakers are going to have to be bad again.
Well, see, the only thing that saved the Lakers this time was LeBron being, at the time, top 5 player in the league, coming in and reviving the franchise. They have no draft capital whatsoever after all these trades. They traded away draft capital to get Russ. They trade away draft capital to get rid of him. They trade away draft capital to get some of these players now. You're going to need another, like, top 5 type player in the league to come and just want to be a Laker and say, like, look, I know we're not great, but the intrigue there of being in Los Angeles and having the different, whatever superstar spotlight on you. So you need someone like Nikola Jokic, which I don't see him wanting to be a Laker in a couple of years. Maybe Luka Doncic or something. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, if he's, hits that next level, wants to come back to LA, play for the other team. Jason Tatum, I guess. But you look down, it's like some of the best players now who are going to be the superstars in 5 years, like you said. Maybe like Ja Morant. Unless one of those type of, like, that level of player just says, you know what, even if I take $5 million less a year to play for the Lakers, it's the Lakers, it's the marquee franchise in the league in Los Angeles. Like they're going to have to suck. You need one, like you can't even have like a guy like AD be there by himself. You can't have a level of that. You can't have someone who is going to be a second team All-NBA guy. You need like a de facto like superstar, but like every year is maybe one of the top 2 or 3 vote getters in the All-Star game to want to be a Laker, because you won't have the draft capital to draft anyone like that. They're not good enough now to draft someone who is going to be that otherworldly type of guy. So you need, and they won't have the cap space because they're paying out for everybody. So you need like one guy who just decides, look, I want to be in LA. That's the life for me. We may only win 38 games this year, but I'll be able to convince someone just like LeBron did, like with AD, just like Kawhi did once he signed there to try to get Paul George, get that second banana in there. That's their future. Like they need guys to want to come there, and because they don't have the ability to lure those guys in there beyond just like the legacy and the spotlight. And that's the thing with LA. You're always going to have that there,
Well, and to your point about, I mean, probably like stars are going to want to go to those big market franchises, like Miami before Jimmy Butler got there. Like Deion Waiters was one of their best players. Like stars are going to get to destinations they want to be. Like LeBron coming to LA, but here's the thing, like LeBron has already accomplished so much. LeBron could have gone to LA and not won that bubble trophy and not done some of the other things he's done and still been considered the GOAT by so many people.
Yeah.
Is another star like Tatum. Like I could see the Tatum fit in LA with his, with how much he loves Kobe and how much he's a Kobe guy. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, like you said, maybe he wants to come on back to LA and get the best of the Clippers. Maybe Kawhi wants to go across town at some point. I mean, ultimately, it has taken the Lakers such a long time to get out of this hole, even with LeBron. Like, they've not made the playoffs more than made the playoffs with LeBron. So, if you're Jason Tatum, like, at what point in your career does it make sense to, like, maybe go to the Lakers and be mediocre for 2 years until you can get another star to join you?
Right.
I just don't know if, like, the Lakers are so, are clinging on to LeBron James and whatever he wants. But I don't know. It's just very reminiscent. I don't know if it's an ownership thing with Jeannie Buss, but like to me, it reminds me a lot of the last 4 or 5 years of Kobe's career, where the Lakers weren't really finals contenders anymore. And they were doing whatever they could to cater to Kobe, but ultimately it set the franchise back like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
I think right now, with the Lakers, man, I really feel like their window is like one more year to maybe mess around and become a contender.
Right.
But it's not this year. I really feel that way. I know there are others out there that feel like, well, if they get in the play-in and then get a favorable first-round matchup, top of the West, I don't see it. Like, I think best case scenario for this Laker team, and this is ceiling in my opinion, is second round of the playoffs.
Yeah, agree.
I don't see them getting to the Western Conference Finals.
To your point about LeBron with the Lakers, this is his 5th season in LA. They had the one bubble championship. They won the finals. Went 52-19 overall. They had one more year where they were over 500. They went 42-30, and then the first year in 2018, 2019, last year, and now this year, they're under 500. Like, that is, you can't. They pushed all the chips in to win that one title. Now, I know LeBron and Anthony Davis and Frank Vogel and all those guys can say, we won that title forever. There's always going to be people that say there's an asterisk because of the bubble and everything surrounding that.
Right.
But for them, I'm sure it was worth it. But you had to make so many different moves to try to keep plugging the holes in the ship that emerged from everything just financial-wise and salary cap-wise, and having the failed Frank Vogel thing. I mean, to have a guy who wins a title and 2 years later he is like seen as a laughingstock as a head coach, and then you bring in Darvin Ham, which he doesn't seem to be the type of guy who can handle all of everything that comes with the Lakers. It feels like they need someone like Phil Jackson, and that's why I think it worked so well with Phil in the early 2000s with the Lakers, with Kobe and Shaq having those personalities. Is Phil was such like a dominant personality himself, and that's the thing with LA. If you're going to have that psyche of, all right, we need to have the top players, get all the best players, guys who are superstars, they're going to view themselves that way. And they're going to act a certain way that you need another guy who is not going to just acquiesce to those demands. I mean, with LeBron in Miami, Pat Riley put his foot down and said, no, this is what we're doing. It's going to work. And it did work. And I think once LeBron kind of saw that, he softened a little bit, but he still cycles through coaches a lot. If you have someone who has the force of personality, like someone like Phil Jackson. Obviously, Phil Jackson's not going to come back to the Lakers at this age. But someone who has kind of that type of, look, I know what I'm doing. You can't boss me around. That's going to be the type of coach that the Lakers need in the future to let it happen. You're not going to have the honeymoon year of the best player of all time, and at the time, a top 5 player in the league, maybe top 7 in AD, when he was relatively healthy, come in and say, we're going to put it all this year together. It's not going to happen again.
The problem with LeBron being where he's at in his career and being one of the greatest ever and being the all-time scoring champ now is you're probably not going to find another head coach out there who's going to be more respected and more heard among everybody in that locker room. It's just a LeBron dominant locker room at this point. It's like I said, it's a lot like Kobe at the end of his career. There's not many NBA head coaches out there, I think, right now that can be dominant figures for the Lakers. I don't think even a guy like Mike Budenholzer going to LA, I think he makes them a lot better, but I don't know if it's enough. I don't know if a guy like that is necessarily enough. You'd have to get someone like Eric Spoelstra. I think Ty Lue would have been a great fit with the Lakers. I think the Lakers really whiffed by I think they had a chance to get Ty Lue.
Totally.
And
I think LeBron wanted Ty Lue.
And I think Ty Lue's done a great job with the Clippers.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I couldn't agree more. I think, personality like Phil Jackson, obviously that ship has sailed. What about that? What about Tom Thibodeau? Is there any fit? Because Tibbs is it's hit or miss with Tibbs. Tibbs does more with less, but does he do more with more?
Right. Yeah. If you give him superstars, like, I feel like if you have a young guy like D Rose was, who was kind of willing to just like, especially because D Rose had the reins of it, like he could do whatever he wanted that offense. Like he had the ball in his hands so many times. Then you had the complementary pieces like Dang and Noah, who wanted to play really hard defense. Tibbs, I think, is a funny or like an interesting scenario because he obviously does get a lot out of his teams for, 2-3 years, and then he kind of wears out his welcome with some guys. He gets them to play hard on defense for sure, but he's a hard ass. Like he is. There's a point where being a hard ass like Tibbs stops becoming like a I know what I'm doing and kind of alpha personality and becomes more like a hey, this guy's a jerk. Like we don't want to listen to him. Like if you've won a championship, like Spo, you said, like you have that authority to say like, look, I know what it takes. Obviously, a guy like Pat Riley back in the day, or Phil Jackson. Like, you look at his finger and he's wearing all those rings.
Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr has earned that respect.
Yes, exactly. And he's, less of like the hard ass. Like, he does seem like he has that side of him when he's mad at his players for, committing 20 turnovers in the first half or something. But he's definitely more of a player's coach than the prototypical, like, Phil Jackson type. But you have to have that pedigree. You have to have that respect by the players. And even like someone like Frank Vogel, they won the championship. I don't think he had that. Like the players knew this is a weird scenario. Like LeBron at that point in his career, and now especially still, he's the de facto head guy. Like no one's gonna. There's two voices in the huddle, like you said, and one's LeBron and the other one's the head coach. Unless the head coach has a ring, like Spo, like Steve Kerr, guys would be like, "Hey, LeBron's talking, dude." Like. I know what you're saying, but LeBron's LeBron. So you need that authoritative voice. Score check right now. Arizona just beat Utah. Utah could have used a big win, but Arizona blew them out 88-62. Gonzaga is putting the hurting on LMU 59-22.
Sheesh.
In LA.
First half?
Yeah, still 2 minutes left in the first half. Gonzaga could get to 120 tonight. UCLA. Zach Anderson-Yaxheimer is not happy.
Stanford giving him a
Stanford game. Up by 4 at the break at Pauley Pavilion. Let's take a quick break, but first I want to ask, you being a Heat fan, linked to both Kevin Love and Russell Westbrook, what do you feel about that? LA guys.
Let's get weird. Let's bring him in.
Yeah.
I'm all in.
I feel like you bring Russ in, and somehow him and Jimmy are just going to click. Like, Jimmy's going to get him in line, like, hey, bro, play defense, and we're good.
Let's get weird.
Yeah.
Let's get weird. I like both.
Russ and Hero, like, downtown South Beach, that could be a fun, like,
Dwayne Dedmon's in Philly now, but
yeah.
Gabe Vincent's still there.
Yeah, Gabe Vincent, he lived the UCSB life. Any requests for our song, or should we
let's keep it rolling.
Doom? All right. Here we go. I said, here we go. Thank you.
What should we get after to wrap it up?
Keep your hoes in check.
A little bit of baseball.
Yeah.
Shohei.
Yeah. Talk
comments. I don't know.
I got this girl and she wants me to duke her. I told her I'll come scoop her around 8. She said, that sounds great. Shorty girl's a trooper. No matter what I need her to do, she be like, on his own throne, the boss like King Cooper. On the microphone, he flossed the ring. Average MCs is like a TV blooper. MF Doom, he's like DB Cooper. Out with the moolah. I let her get her outfit just to cool her off. She said niggas ain't about shit. I wonder if she meant it. I doubt it. The way it be in her mouth, she can't live without it. And can't live with this. Handle your business. Villainous, stay on a scandalous whole shit list. 1 pack of cookies, please, Mr. Hooper. It's fun smacking rookies. He is the look like a black Wookie when he let his beard grow. Weirdo. Brown skin always kept his hair low. Rumors has it it's a S-curl accident. Doom was always known to keep the best girls' backs bent. Some say it's the eyes, some say the accent. A lot of guys wonder where their stacks went. I call her thunder thighs with the fatty swoller. Only mess with high rollers, do what daddy told her. No matter the city, she with me to do the thang thang. Working the coochie hoopty chitty chitty bang bang. Same name on the titty as on the name ring. Pretty like Baby D or all in the same gang. Keep my eye on her, really don't trust her, but I treat her like a daughter. Taught her how to bust a nut and the heat to turn beef to horse meat chalupa. Teach her how to hold it, of course he is the. See, most cats treat her like fufa or beat her to a stupor. Take it from the. You need to make her feel cuter and lay down the G like loofah. Everything'll be do for her. Keep her in a new fur so she looks sweet when she go to meet the. Got the Buddha, get the grenadiers. Twist it, put it in the air. Come here, kiss it. Listen here, Scooter. Let her try to bag you when she's on the rag. Never let her fry the ragu. Which will have you into some type of spell crying dag boo. Her name on your back in a tattoo. Whether a bougie broad, nerd hoe, street chick. Don't call her wife if you met her at the freak nick. You don't want her, don't waste her time, I'll dupe her. And be a father to your child like the. He keep his hoes in check, sends him out to get glows from all frozen necks. Tell him take his clothes, leave him posing naked for real. Better yet, get him for the check off the record deal. Find out where he keep the tech and the blue steel. Make sure for extra rec, let him know how you feel. And while he's running down to All-Star Weekend to ball, I'm coming with the U-Ball.
Has the laser cannon been loaded?
Everything has been prepared as you ordered. But how did you get permission to return to New York, Master?
Through the efforts of a misguided fool.
It's free enterprise. And I'm not gonna let some blasted government bureaucrat tell me how to run my business.
But Doom
Will be my guest on my private estate on Long Island. There's nothing you can do about it.
He's dangerous. I just hope you know what you're doing.
Don't I always? Ah, there's Doom's jet. Right on time.
Why is it so cold down here?
The heat went out in the whole building.
Warm enough out there on Long Island with Doom.
Doom? Here in New York?
Yes, Doom has an amazing new machine.
He's the President of the United States on the phone.
How long is all this gonna take, Doom?
I would not advise you to repeat that error.
Sure. I know what you mean.
Alright, we got the LA Clippers and the Phoenix Suns. Phoenix Suns sans Kevin Durant. The Clippers bringing the ball up the court. And, oh, that's Eric Gordon. No, that's not. Is that Eric Gordon? And up 91-84 here on TNT. Welcome back to
Are you doing a little Mike Abrams there?
Just doing a little play-by-play. That's what you tune in for. Now, Chris, I want to talk some news. But first,
Pitchers and catchers.
First.
Yes.
An update from the score update. Okay, so last night there were some good basketball games in the college landscape, right?
Yeah.
We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 ranked teams playing. Of those teams, Alabama scored 59, Tennessee scored 68. Xavier scored 68. Indiana scored 62. TCU scored 59. And San Diego State, very Aztec fashion, won the game, scored 45. Gonzaga, they just shouted out that they had like 55. It is now halftime in Los Angeles. It is Loyola Marymount 28, Gonzaga 68. They scored more or as much as most of the ranked teams last night in the first half. They are on pace.
Are the Zags back?
We bagged them early in the show. They're back, baby. Julian Strother has 22 points in the first half. Drew Timme has 2. Wow. So they are scoring that much with Strother. Pepe has 7. 7 big. Is he related to the Leo Pepe twins Cal Poly?
To all the bitch ass hoes that hate me the most. Oh yeah, I hate you too. To all the punk ass bugs that just want
feel like I'm in the Matrix. Like, I feel like this person who said Monday.com was planted here by Monday.com. Gonzaga shot 71%.
By the way, it's very broad marketing strategy. You have your ad blockers on?
Alright, Monday.com, I have no idea what it is, so this is some sort of...
To all the bitch assholes that hate me the most.
It is a platform built for a new way of working. Okay, so it's like that.
To all the punk ass bugs that just wanna talk shit, I hate you too. To all the high class ass that's too hard to pass, oh yeah, I hate you too. Hey. Doses and mimosas, champagne and cocaine, how to get me through.
Project management, sales and CRM, task management, HR, operations, trusted by, this is trusted by 152,000 plus. I feel like it was 152,000. It kind of looks like it's like a McDonald's. Yeah. Slash Salesforce. I would know. Okay, so Monday.com. Jackson, no, it's actually still okay. I pressed pause. Jackson, we need you.
Yeah, come on, Jackson.
Jackson, I told Jackson like 5 different times, hey, I'm gonna do a show. Gonna come in. There's always a project for Jackson to work on. I'm starting to think Jackson might not want to come in.
You know,
we could need
look,
you.
The
Jax.
problem here is they just missed that entire segment about Monday.com.
Could you not hear it at all? Oh, no. Well, Monday.com, we only have good things to say.
About Monday.com.
About Monday.com.
We should approach, I don't see why we should approach Monday.com.
Also.
About a partnership.
Yes. Who sang that song about a Tuesday? Club's going
up on a Tuesday. Yeah,
okay.
It was,
Mike Chelson, if you're watching.
He is.
He,
but not on our cameras.
Mike, where are you? Mike. Yeah, the lights are glowing. Okay. 7-day-a-week show. We won't be doing it all the time. We'll bring in Steven. We'll have a different sponsor for every day of the week. We'll have Monday.com for the Monday show. We'll have whoever was talking about flipping drugs in the club on Tuesdays.
Right.
Wednesday from Netflix.
Yeah.
Thursday, there's some sort of probably liquor by cork and bottle for Thursday.
Higera. Like just Thursday night's the biggest night on Higera.
Farmer's Market. We could have some fresh produce.
Farmer's Market Thursdays.
Come in here. Friday night.
Well, you know what we need is a booth at Farmer's Market.
I've actually thought about that. It's a good idea. Like, just go in there and like
we do it live. We just do it live from a booth.
You know what? You have the tie line, right?
Yeah.
As long as it's not LA County, I think we'll be good. Just don't do any games on a Friday night from LA County. You run into a side of Mike Chelson that no one thought was possible.
Cameras look angry.
Yeah, they glow red, which is not good. It's very intimidating. But good idea, Mike.
Anyway, Monday.com.
Monday.com. Go there. HR, baby. Baseball. Speaking of HR, Corbin Burns not happy.
Yeah. Wow.
So he had arbitration meeting between he and the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, this is...
Arbitration doesn't happen in any other sport, does it?
Not in American sports. I mean, maybe in other sports. But no, I don't think so.
No, what is this whole arbitration?
It's probably a Bud Selig type deal.
Yeah. But
hey, I think this would be great if we could have even more team years control and someone like Shohei Ohtani. I know this is not how Bud Selig talks, but I'm envisioning him. And
Bones Highland talks.
He's in his second year. I still don't understand why they traded him away. Sorry, let me get back in the vibe. So you can, if you have an opportunity to screw over a player, right? He's in his 5th year. He's won 3 MVPs. $6 million a year, right? Arbitration, baby. Let's go. Corbin Burns not happy with the arbitration process. So he had the meeting. Cy Young winner in 2021. Juiced up. Absolutely juiced.
Not in a bad way.
No, he's the Juice WRLD.
He's clean.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Juice WRLD.
Yeah, really. He'll be our song of choice or our artist of choice next week. We only do deceased artists on this show because we don't want to run into copyright from people listening.
That's true.
So over a difference of less than $750,000. So the Brewers wanted to give him $10.01 million. I don't know why you needed the extra $10,000 there, but okay. Corbin Burns wanted $10.75 million. Now, to argue their case, the Milwaukee Brewers, to save themselves less than $1 million for their star pitcher, pretty much said in their arguments that Corbin Burns was the reason they didn't make the playoffs last year because he struggled down the stretch. Now, I don't know about you, but if I were running a mid-market MLB franchise who is not exactly known for getting marquee free agents, and to go to one of the top 10 pitchers, maybe conservatively, in the league and say, yeah, you sucked last year. You're the reason why we sucked, and we don't want to pay you $750K. And now he's probably going to leave once his arbitration's over.
Yeah,
that doesn't make any sense. What is with baseball owners? What is with?
Yeah, that.
What?
The Nationals, who are 3 years removed from a World Series, 4 years removed from a World Series. They just they stopped. They got their ring and they stopped caring.
Right.
Like the Red Sox got their ring and are like, we don't need Mookie Betts long term. What? What? Like you're trying to contend, but now instead of Mookie Betts, your big money player is Trevor Story.
Yeah.
But to me, baseball owners make the least sense when it comes to transactions. Like in no other sport do you see a team be like, well, we just won a title, we're good.
Yeah.
That's fine. We don't really care about contending for another. The Royals are a perfect example. Yes. They sucked for 20 years. They got good for 4 years, and then they shipped everybody out. Now they suck again.
Yep. Hit lightning in the bottle, and then they just threw everyone away. The Nationals had loyalty to one player, and that was Ryan Zimmerman. Everyone else were just like, get out of here. I guess Steven Strasburg too, but they can't really do anything with Strasburg because his shoulder's
hurt all the
toast.
time. I mean, Steven Strasburg is the modern day Jacoby Ellsbury. That guy didn't play the final 4 years of his career.
Yeah, but I think Strasburg at his height was better than Ellsbury ever was.
Sure. Okay, how about Pedroia as a comp?
Okay, yeah. I can't. Pedroia was 5'9" and
yeah, right. But he was an MVP.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, interesting story with him. But I mean, he was in the league, but also played 10 games in 5 years. It felt like
right. That was weird.
That's weird. Like the Strasburg thing to me. Does anybody know if he's at spring training?
Right. I guess we can find out.
Is he expected to be on the opening day roster this year? I couldn't tell you.
Because piggyback,
for baseball guys like us, I'd be excited to watch a Steven Strasburg start.
Yeah. One day ago on ESPN.com, Strasburg not at spring training following setback.
Oh, goodness.
So he had an operation in 2021 to correct his thoracic outlet syndrome. He had a setback in a recent bullpen session. That's not a good sign. Not a good sign whatsoever. Yeah, it's, the Royals you mentioned, and then teams like the Marlins where they just had the history of building up, winning a title, and then throwing it all away. It worked for them a couple times, so I guess that worked for them. But then you look at, I guess the Orioles are kind of on the come up. They have, I know you and I bagged on.
But they've been bad for so long. I mean,
Right.
They've got all these top picks.
Yeah.
Like, hopefully they've turned a corner.
And if you're a team like the Rays, where they're consistently good and they have a terrible payroll, or, low, I guess terrible is a synonym for low payroll. I guess you can argue that they're not at fault because they're doing enough, but at the same time, imagine if they got their payroll to like 150. What the Rays could be like the Dodgers. I mean, the Dodgers, they have a very smart front office led by Andrew Friedman, but they also spend like $250 million a year. So if you want to compete with that, and it was different, I think, back in like the early 2000s and stuff, because you had teams like the Rays or Oakland, teams that used analytics when it wasn't a big thing, that found those advantages over the teams like the Yankees and the Red Sox, who were paying $200 million payrolls, so you could compete. But now if you have a team that has an enormous payroll, who also has, not to denigrate any of the old Yankee, like Brian Cashman or anyone, but a guy who has really good at analytics in Andrew Friedman, who's willing to have an ownership group pay $300 million a year, or the Astros, it's hard to compete. You look at the A's now, I don't know how the A's are going to get back to contention. We just traded away a first-round pick and AJ Puck for another, I guess, first-round pick, but a hitter who has like a 600 OPS, who is not super young anymore. The A's, I'm sure they have some sort of strategy around it, but Billy Beane is not this guy he was in 2002.
Well, and Billy Beane has even tougher things to deal with than back in 2002.
Right.
Like, it's worse now.
Yeah.
Than in 2002. Because at least in 2002, they were trying to put together pieces to contend, albeit on the cheap. But I just don't... I think the game has changed. And there are just some people, and I'm not saying Billy Beane's this because, the A's... Hey, man, I know you can't see it happening, but there is a world, and it's happened before, but there is a world where the A's come out and win 85 games.
I would like that, but I don't see it. Maybe if they play the Angels every game.
I don't see it. I mean, look, I think losing Bob Melvin really took a lot of wind out of the whole, doing more with less.
See, that's part of it. You need to have a really good manager who is in cahoots with the front office, that they know what's going on. Now, I don't advocate for that for every single franchise, because there are too many franchises that the general manager wants to be the general manager and the manager, but not be in the dugout. You saw that with the Phillies, and look, it ended up working for them. They were bad under Girardi, and then they changed managers, and it worked out well. But there's a lot of general managers who, maybe even like the Giants. Bochy is an old school style manager. He left partially because, the Giants weren't doing much anymore, but because you knew the new Farhan Zaidi coming from, the A's back in the day, but being a very analytics-based guy, he is one of those guys who pretty much wants to run the decisions through the general manager's office. And then they get a guy in Kapler who thinks the same way, but it's not always going to work that way. You need to have some sort of, I know we've kind of all coalesced around here are the best things for analytics-based baseball, but you think about that, and you think about things always seem to be, okay, things are changing for the better. People are finding new ways, and it's only going to make things more efficient. Launch angle, yada, yada. But then the rules change. The rules are changing this year. There's no shifts. They're keeping the ghost runner, which is horrible.
Terrible.
Full-time DH, is in. I'm mostly in favor of. But these rule changes that are meant to do different things to increase fan interest and whatnot, but you have departments that are trying to find the latest and greatest and breaking details, and at some point You just have to let the players play the game, I think. And segueing into a guy who wants to play, but maybe not want to play much longer in SoCal. What do you think about Shohei's comments, were they today or yesterday?
Today.
Saying, quote, "As of now, I'm an angel." I mean, look, he's going to be an angel his entire life. Guy's going to age gracefully.
Yeah.
His complexion is on point.
Is very smooth.
Yes. But as in a Los Angeles angel. So, I mean, obviously winning the World Series is your hope, but realistically,
Okay. Yeah, that's all our hope.
let's keep it within the realm of possibilities. What do you want to see happen with Shohei, the Angels franchise? I know you wanted Marino to go, but now he's pulled back that. Let's hear your thoughts, especially with Shohei's comments.
Let's start with this, because the Angels, in keeping Shohei Ohtani, have basically said we're 100% against a rebuild, and we're going to try like hell to get this guy to the playoffs this year and make it feel like we're going in the right direction, and that you can stay here, you know what it's like here, and we just made the playoffs, and now that we've made the playoffs, now let's start going to the playoffs, yearly. What did they do this offseason? 3-year deal for Tyler Anderson. Okay, coming off a good year with the Dodgers.
That's always a question mark.
It is. If the Dodgers are letting him go, there's a reason for it. Mm-hmm. I didn't like that pickup. I mean, is Tyler Anderson better than Patrick Sandoval? Is Tyler Anderson better than Jose Suarez? Is Tyler Anderson better than Reed Detmers? I don't know what you're adding to your rotation there, Tyler Anderson. Mm-hmm. If he gives you a year like he did last season with the Dodgers, great. If not, if he's this fringe MLB guy like he was most of his career with Pittsburgh and then Seattle for a season, like what are you looking for from Tyler Anderson? Okay,
right.
Bullpen. You traded Raisel Iglesias after giving him that big deal the offseason prior. You signed Carlos Estevez, who the analytics people will tell you was really good away from Coors Field, but had like a 6 ERA at Coors Field. Mm-hmm. And I guess you're buying high there, like you're hoping that you get the Carlos Estevez that pitches on the road. I mean, he's got good stuff, throws like 100. Today they signed Matt Moore. A 1-year, $7+ million deal for Matt Moore. And by the way, Artie Moreno this is going to be the highest payroll he's ever had as the owner of the Angels. Matt Moore had about 5 or 6 absolute disaster seasons before pitching in a low-leverage bullpen role and finishing with a sub-2 ERA last year with Texas. Hunter Renfroe. Almost 30 home runs last year with Milwaukee, but Boston didn't want him. Tampa didn't want him. Brandon Drury, utility player his entire career, has a massive first half in arguably the biggest hitter's ballpark at Great American in the league. Goes to San Diego, his numbers diminish, has a pretty good postseason. And last but not least, when you look at guys that the Angels have added, and I'm blanking on this. Oh, Gio Urshela. Gio Urshela, who's a serviceable, slightly above league average utility infielder. Mm-hmm. The Yankees didn't want him. Right. The Twins were going to non-tender him. So when I look at what the Angels did this offseason, a lot of people among the fan base are very optimistic because they felt like this was a really good offseason, that the Angels just needed to shore up their depth because Rendon's always getting hurt, Trout's always getting hurt, and you wind up with just Ohtani in the lineup and a bunch of guys that don't belong anywhere near the big leagues, but the Angels have the worst minor league system in baseball. So the guys they call up from AAA, that's why the Angels are bad, right? Because they don't have depth, whatever. You know, it's not because they don't have capable enough players. That's never the issue with them. It's the lack of pitching and the lack of depth. So I named all the big off-season moves for this franchise. it sounds like they just bought really high on guys that did well last year, and they're hoping to catch that same lightning in a bottle. And, like, I don't expect Brandon Drury to hit close to 30 home runs this year.
Right.
I don't expect Hunter Renfroe to be an above. Is Hunter Renfroe any better than Taylor Ward? A little more pop, but, like, how much better is he than Taylor Ward? Mm-hmm. So, you know, Gio Urshela, it's a good backup, but you're going to start Gio Urshela at shortstop and get away with that for 150 games? You know, Tyler Anderson is the same thing. The two relievers, Moore and Estevez, like, these aren't needle-moving moves. Like, the Angels are a 500 team at best, and these moves at best get them to, what, 87 wins? And I guess, like, as an Angel fan at this point, we haven't been to the postseason in almost 10 years. Like, I'll take a wild card spot, but going back to how this discussion started, is Ohtani just okay with, like, popping into a wild card series for the first time in his career and then deciding to sign a 10-year mega deal to stay?
Right.
I don't know. I think, like, what's the ceiling for the Angels? Like, it's just getting a wild card spot in my mind. You're not going to be better than Houston. I don't think you're better than Seattle. I think Texas is kind of in the same boat as the Angels, where they have a lot of intriguing names, but, like, overall, like, the product just isn't going to be good enough. So, like, the hope is that the Angels reach their absolute ceiling, and that means Anthony Rendon plays a full season. That means Trout doesn't miss more than 2 weeks. That means Ohtani, like, the crazy thing about Shohei Ohtani is that, like, his durability the last 2 years has been as impressive as his numbers.
Yeah.
To be able to go out and pitch every sixth day and be a top starting pitcher and then be in the starting lineup every night and be one of the top hitters in the game. Mm-hmm. Like, there's no guarantee that he's going to be able to do that again this season.
Right.
So there's so many what-ifs with the Angels. And I also sympathize from the standpoint of, okay, if you're not going to rebuild, you might as well keep this guy and milk this guy as long as you have him. But if the goal, it's much like our conversation with those big market teams that are kind of just going nowhere. It's like, this Angels team isn't going to win a championship. And the Angels are always like, well, if we're in it at the deadline, we'll make a championship move. They're never in it at the deadline. Right. Are they in it at the deadline this year to go improve the roster further? Like, do they have intriguing enough pieces to trade to somebody that's going to give you a rental, like a starting pitcher or a back-end bullpen or another corner infielder that can hit? So for the Angels, man, like with Shohei Ohtani, I mean, what do? I mean, what if you were the GM? Do you trade away a once-in-a-lifetime type of talent and, you know, get a pretty decent haul of minor leaguers around? Because I'm in the boat where if you trade Ohtani, you should trade Trout too.
Yeah.
If, like, the Ohtani thing doesn't work out, then go send Trout somewhere, because then you have to rebuild.
I feel like for the Angels, what they should do, you see where you're at, you know, mid-July. If they are even within 5 games of 500, obviously you're better. I think you have to keep going. You for the fans, just morale. I think if you're say if you're 40 and, you know, I don't know how many games there are in the I guess in July, you'll probably have played 100 games. So let's say
45 and 55.
Yeah, if you're 45 and 55, I think at that point the fans are like, you know what, we understand. Like, you gave it a run. Like, Shohei, we appreciate all the memories, and
get a little bit for him.
Let's get some prospects, especially if he's like, hey, I want to go to San Francisco, or I want to go to New York, or wherever else. If he's like, yes, and he communicates with the front office of that team and says, I'm coming and I want to sign an extension, then in that case, you can get, you know, their top 3 prospects. You know, you can get a king's ransom for him. For Trout, it's going to be harder because of the injury issues you talked about. He was so healthy the first 5, 6, 7 years of his career, and it was so otherworldly that you got used to that. And now the last 3, 4 years, every year there's a month, there's 3 weeks, there's even more. You know, last year was bad. And I think teams are starting to see a little bit of Giancarlo Stanton in him. Which, I mean, obviously they're different players. He's a much better average hitter. He's better overall, better fielder and whatnot. But they both have very muscular builds, like big, strong shoulders and stuff, and swings that are just kind of have a lot of torque. that you can see, like, you look at Stanton. Stanton's not going to play over 120 games a year, the rest of his career. He just
even as a DH.
Right. Like, he just gets hurt way too easily. That's what happens with guys who are super muscle-bound like that. And, I think Trout's gotten more like that as his career's gone on, which, if he stays healthy, it's great. He's top 5 player in the league when he is healthy. But I think there's a real risk, especially with how enormous his contract is, that teams don't want to trade real capital. I mean, unless he's like the piece, I guess if you're the Yankees, the team has the payroll space and says, look, we need a center fielder, and he's been relatively healthy this year, and we just have to eat the rest of his contract. If he keeps getting hurt, he keeps getting hurt, but this is our chance now. Maybe that happens, but I don't see the Angels getting anything of real substance for him if that were to come to the case. Whereas Shohei, they do.
I think with Trout, I mean, you'll probably get a couple solid players back, maybe a couple solid prospects back if you were to shop him. But I think the whole thing there would be, maybe get less back in terms of players, but just get someone to eat that salary.
Right.
So.
But then, as fans, we shouldn't care. Like, that's Artie Moreno's money. Like, we should want them to pay more. Like, we shouldn't be like, all right, now you can. Like, what is he going to do with that money besides pay Mike Trout, who is a top 10 player of all time? Like, is he going to...
And still a top 5 hitter in the game.
Yeah. Is he going to find diamonds in the rough with all that money to make the Angels better? They haven't shown anything so far. I mean, you talked about all the signings they had and how suspicious you are that they're going to work out. Like, you and I had this running joke that you take one player, someone like a Brandon Drury or a Trevor Cahill or, anyone else.
Matt Harvey.
You put him on the Angels, he's going to have 2 disastrous months and be cut. And then he goes to the Rays and he's going to become like a 7th inning stud. Like, it's just, whatever it is, whether it's the coaching staffs, the culture, the ownership, whatever it is, there is a real difference from the Angels signing someone and someone like the Rays. And it's just, you can have the same player, the same guy. Whatever happens once they get within those walls, something changes that they're different. And, if you're the Angels, I can see trading away Shohei if things get bad because of the insane haul you'll get. But with Trout, like, I think you just gotta stay with him. You gotta have him be the superior version, obviously, of someone like Dane, who just stays there forever because you're supposed to be a big market team, and if you're not paying the $40 million a year for him, it's not like you're going to find 3 pieces in there that lead you to a championship. You might as well keep the fans coming.
I'll say this. I think Artie Moreno, by the end of the 2023 calendar year, is going to have them back on the block for sale.
Yeah, I agree.
I maybe it's the pessimistic, Angels fan in me, but I don't think this works out. I don't think this works out this year. I don't think they're good enough. I think they lose Ohtani, and at that point, you're just headed in the wrong direction, and Artie gave it one last stab.
Yeah.
I kind of understand it, because watch Artie Moreno sell the team, then all of a sudden everything clicks for the Angels. They have all these stars. So, I think he's kind of giving it one final shot.
And, this talk about buyer's remorse. Yep, I'm sure there's seller's remorse. You have 2 of the most marketable player in the game, maybe alongside Aaron Judge. But that's because Aaron Judge is in New York. But Shohei is by far the most marketable player in the game with everything he does. Mike Trout could be a very marketable player as how good he is. You don't want to give that up. I mean, I'm sure he had pangs of just like, oh my God, what am I doing? What am I doing? No, I can't do this. But yeah, I agree. I think he puts the team up for sale again pretty soon. Let's wrap it up before we go. Tim McCarver, who was a good color commentator, a good baseball player back in his day, passed away. Really, I mean, I first got into baseball, it was him and Joe Buck, commentating
All-Star
games.
Game, World Series. That's what I grew up on. That's what you grew up on.
Oh.
I like Joe Davis and John Smoltz. It's not the same. It's just like Sunday Night Baseball. Like, I thought Dan Schulman did a really good job when he was doing it, but it's Joe Morgan, John Miller.
Right.
At the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, rest in peace, and hope everyone enjoyed the show. Thanks for tuning in.
We'll be back at an undetermined date.
That's right. We'll pop up on
Another
your
time.
Twitter feed, and hopefully, if you subscribe, you get a little notification on your phone. But yeah, we'll be back.
And you've got a newsletter.
Right. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for helping me plug that.
Real quick.
So okay, before we get into this, I'm not sold on the name What's at Stake, but I had to put a name in there.
I like it.
Okay, a newsletter. It goes through.
As long as I can join and do my best bets of the day.
Yes, of course. It goes through pretty much like lineal titles and whatnot. Like who is the lineal champion for the NFL? That's kind of what we're trying to determine right now. And give some background going through, right now we're just going through the 1920s, talking about the Rock Island Independence and the Decatur Staleys, the prior Chicago Bears, and just kind of giving some background and stories on that. It's been fun researching that. And I had a real live writer, Jonathan Snowden, comment on it and say he likes the idea a lot. So
I like it. I like it too.
Yeah, thank you. So we're 3 newsletters in. We have growth in subscribers each day, so that's been fun. And if you would like to, what's at stake.substack.com, or you can just go to my Twitter at AlexKlupper, CLUPPER. I have the link there. And MF Doom, take it away.
Take it away.
Yo. MF Doom.
Mr. Fantastic.
Villain. What up, nigga?
Ain't nothing. What's the word?
It's cracking, boy.
Same old shit, kid.
Man.
Day,
Rap snitches, man. Shit is bugged out, man. What the fuck?